In order to get to the core of the issue, I have to start at the beginning and tackle all of Nintendo's anti-consumer practices even outside of Smash. I apologize for the lack of visual flair that this video may have, as it will be lengthy and be focused on heavily important information. Also, all music in this video is provided by my friend John Minase. Links to his channel and all sources will be provided in the description down below. You know, I started making Sonic videos again because, to be honest, I haven't been feeling Smash Ultimate lately. It's not the gameplay at all. If you wanted my honest opinion about Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and where it stands in the Smash Bros. Hierarchy, I believe it lives up to its namesake of Ultimate. It has the best gameplay in the series in my opinion, and I don't think any of the previous entries compare to it in that regard. But it fails in the most instrumental place for a multiplayer game in the modern day and age, and that is with its online. But it doesn't fail because the developers are merely incompetent. It fails because Nintendo doesn't care about the consumer. The online for Smash games has never been great. Whether it be horrible official support from Nintendo or the limitation of emulators, Smash has yet to see good online, or at least until earlier this year. Now is where we talk about one of the most revolutionary rollback systems implemented into a fighting game, Sippi. Sippi was created by Fizzy, a resident member in the Smash community, to help facilitate good connections between players on netplay for Super Smash Bros. Melee. Fizzy was so dedicated to this project that he left his job to pursue the creation of this system so that the Melee community could strive. Recently, the Big House's latest Melee tournament was cancelled due to the usage of Sippi. While legally Nintendo has every right to do this, it was completely unjustifiable. While over the course of competitive Smash's run, Nintendo has been largely absent and has done little to support it, even going as far as to attempt to ban Melee's run at EVO 2013, they've rarely gone after events in the manner that they have recently. On top of this recent shutting down of Big House, a tweet longer has come out detailing what has essentially been Nintendo's mission to block competitive Smash Bros. At all levels. But hey, we'll get to all those details in a few. What's good, everybody out there on YouTube? This is your man Shadicstick dropping some hot faraga on this mic, and in today's video we'll be detailing many of the major anti-consumer moves Nintendo has pulled over the course of the past generation, how it has affected the gaming community at large, and how we as fans can try to change the situation. One thing that has been a major gaming topic recently is the incompetence and anti-consumer nature of Nintendo. And to analyze this, we have to roll back to the beginning of the Nintendo Switch's life in 2017. While very bare bones, the Nintendo Switch was a very fascinating console with a continuously growing library of top-notch titles, which included the likes of Splatoon 2, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and the rumored Smash game, which would go on to be Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And this was all with a system that had free online in an age of game developers and publishers pushing services down the throats of consumers. And don't get me wrong, some of these services are great. For example, Microsoft's Game Pass, which gives the users access to hundreds of games and Xbox exclusives day one for as low as $10 a month. On the other hand, we have archaic services like PlayStation Plus and Xbox Live that have decent perks but shouldn't be mandatory just to play online, as they only really exist as a somewhat forced recurrent monetization scheme that players feel like they're obligated to get only because without it people would not be able to play online, which like half of all, if not almost every game nowadays has some type of online component to it. But hey, you didn't hear it from me. But back on topic. Things weren't perfect, most notably the connection in many of the games running through Nintendo's online service, as it was subpar to say the least, and the connections in these games are still subpar to this day. This wouldn't be nearly as much of an issue as it is if we didn't have to pay for the service now. If you're an outsider to the Nintendo Switch or merely didn't have one within the first year and a half, the Nintendo Switch Online service was essentially the same, barring the NES and SNES online applications. Nintendo has done nothing to improve its Switch Online service for its members, essentially retroactively fitting a $20 tax to use the system's online capabilities in games. This service provides no benefits, whether it be discounts, free modern AAA games, or even a stable online environment. Basic functions like cloud saves are locked behind this paywall, with quite a few key titles being barred from taking advantage of the feature, most notably games like Splatoon 2 and originally Animal Crossing New Horizons. Additionally, the Switch lacks truly basic features like a party chat system, which has been offloaded to a third-rate app created by Nintendo for mobile devices, with the feature being locked to about 5 games and being unusable should you not be in said titles. Again, I cannot say this enough, nothing has improved since the implementation of this online service that was implemented 2 years ago, a full year and a half after the Switch had launched. In addition to an insanely shoddy online system is a barely functional eShop. The eShop is ridiculously bare bones, and that's to a fault. You can't search games by genre, publisher, year, or anything via menus. You just have to go to the search bar, select one of the few sections on the page, and then hope for the best. This issue is compounded by the hordes of shovelware that Nintendo seeks to do nothing about. The situation is almost as bad as Valve's Steam store when it comes to how prevalent it is, but at least to some degree, Valve works to push the shovelware down in the algorithm. The Switch does nothing but exacerbate it through pushing titles that are on sale, causing everyone who isn't a AAA publisher to exploit this so that their games get noticed. But I'd be able to deal with all of this if Nintendo had a good refund policy, which, if you can probably tell, it doesn't. Essentially, if you buy something even on accident because you thought it was one game and not another, you're up shit creek without a paddle. This not only applies to games that have already released, but also to pre-orders, which is completely asinine. But it makes sense if all that motivates you is dollar signs and commas, right? Nintendo has easily the worst online store and service in the gaming industry currently, and it only continues to age worse with each passing day. So, along with the abysmal online service, Nintendo has been inconsistent with what they deliver on when it comes to their games. Now, this wouldn't be a problem if it were just a case of developers obviously losing touch, but that can't be the case when games like Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey are contenders for the greatest video game ever, and then you have titles like Splatoon 2, the multitude of Xenoblade games, Animal Crossing New Horizons, Luigi's Mansion 3, and Fire Emblem 3 Houses, which, on top of being phenomenal experiences, exceeded expectations. The issue here is in how Nintendo has handled ports of its highly acclaimed franchises, the Pokemon franchise as a whole, which is gaming's biggest video game series and the highest grossing media franchise of all time, and Nintendo's limited releases. Let's talk about ports first. They are honestly ridiculous. While I think Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was a nice representation of how to do this well, it went downhill from there. Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze is one of the most infamous cases. On top of selling a game that at the current time could be purchased for roughly $20 and bumping that up to $60, they did little in the way of adding content to the game, only adding a new Funky mode that allows you to play Funky Kong through the game, and that's really it. And Funky Kong is really just a combination of all the characters. You see the issue here? The next major example is Super Mario 3D All-Stars. I'm not here to argue the quality of the individual games and if they've aged well or not. It's somewhat ridiculous that Nintendo is re-releasing these games with no new extra content, in the most bare-bones state as possible to add on top of that. Super Mario 64 is locked to a 4:3 aspect ratio in addition to only being 720p. It's ridiculous considering people have reverse engineered the game to get a source code to enable widescreen and high resolutions. There's also a lack of 60 FPS, which would have been a much appreciated update to the old classic. But Mario 64 wasn't the only disappointing portion of the collection, so was Super Mario Sunshine, the GameCube cult classic. On top of changing the controls in a very drastic way, like not including inverted controls at launch, there was also a lack of GameCube controller support there. And again, there's a lack of 60 FPS support, something that would have been highly appreciated in this platformer. Finally, Nintendo is charging $60 for this game. And you may say, well, it's an anniversary collection, it must be offering more content than just the games. See, that's what rational human beings would assume, but we're dealing with Nintendo here. The only feature that Nintendo implemented was allowing you, the player, to listen to the soundtracks of the individual games on the home screen menu of the collection. The best part is that they're probably some type of lossy encoding, so it's likely not high quality audio. Thank you, Nintendo. I say this as all the audio files cry. This isn't to mention other ports like New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, oh what a name, that are essentially price gouging for selling the same game over again. And while yes, ports like Pikmin 3 Deluxe and Tokyo Mirage Sessions have been well received and have added content, I still believe that doesn't justify their $60 price tag. We also have the case of Nintendo removing the digital versions of games like Tropical Freeze or Pikmin 3 from the Wii U eShop, limiting buyers' options artificially. It's scummy and I won't stand for it. In addition to piss poor ports of their older titles, newer Pokemon entries have not held the standard of quality to say the least. While many can debate when Pokemon started falling off, what I believe everyone would agree with is that Pokemon Let's Go was an absolute cash grab of a game, and Pokemon Sword and Shield are the worst titles to grace the mainline series. On top of doing little to improve the gameplay of the series comes the worst story the series has probably ever seen, somehow worse animations than the 3DS, bad graphics, and easily the shortest game in the mainline series with a price bump to boot. While many people would like to experience Nintendo's backlog of titles, especially those locked to poorly selling systems like the Wii U or the GameCube, people don't want them for the unnecessarily high costs combined with the lack of care applied to them. Nintendo is quite literally gaming's most iconic company and has the most valuable IPs in the industry. The standard should not be the bare minimum. So you knew this had to be coming, but it has to be talked about. The Joy-Con. It's simultaneously one of the most revolutionary controllers to come out in a long time. It's also one of the worst, but not for the reasons you think. You know, I like the Joy-Con from a practical perspective. They're small and discreet, so they're extremely portable, but also can be easily split into two separate controllers should you want to share your gaming experiences with friends on the go. It's honestly one of my favorite controllers because of this flexibility. But what is wrong with the Joy-Con? Well, a lot, but most notably, drift. You see, most controllers, especially in recent times, I'm looking at you Wii U Gamepad and DualShock 4, will usually cross over into the land of dead analog sticks. Over time, the analog sticks erode due to wear and tear, developing an issue called drift, in which the analog stick doesn't recognize inputs or puts inputs on, in itself, or a combination of both. This has happened to my original Joy-Cons. It wouldn't be an issue had Nintendo fixed this within the first year or so, but here we are almost 4 years later and we're still dealing with the problem. Nintendo has even gone as far as offering free repairs to the Joy-Cons in many areas because of these issues, but they continue to perpetuate the idea that it isn't an issue, likely to avoid all the lawsuits that are currently coming their way. This isn't the only issue that plagued the little Wiimote successors though. Eventually, many of the first year Joy-Con's batteries began to fail alongside the controllers having sync issues. Both are issues I personally have to deal with. So if the controller is so shoddy, it must be cheap, right? No. Originally they used to be $50 individually, but now they're $40. But you're still paying $80 out of pocket if you need both. It's simply ridiculous. Honestly, it's ludicrous how poorly the console's main controller is, considering how much technology is in these things and considering their price. At this point, Nintendo just needs to drop the price of the things or offer cheaper variants because they're getting nowhere with the Joy-Con. So this next section will be focusing on the horrendous use of limited time releases by Nintendo. Recently, two of Nintendo's biggest franchises, Super Mario and Fire Emblem, have been plagued by this. Super Mario 3D All-Stars and the original Fire Emblem will be sold through March 31st, the end of Nintendo's fiscal year. You may ask, why would Nintendo do this? The answer is simple: false demand. See, when something is only available for a limited time, people seek the need to buy a good because it will be eventually gone and never be purchasable again. And Nintendo saw that. They were like, I love this. Hey guys, let's make some money. Now, do they actually plan to carry out this big canceling of being able to purchase the game or whatever? We don't know until it happens, but what we do know is that it's ridiculous, especially considering both are being sold digitally. One of them is exclusively digital, not to mention that it's an NES game being sold in a $50 collector edition with no physical cartridge inside. I know people are gonna say, why does this matter? Well, the reason why it matters is because Nintendo, on top of not re-releasing many of their games over the past decade, is highly against emulation and has sought to destroy it time after time, despite many only using it to enjoy their games because they're just inaccessible in a reasonable manner. I shouldn't have to pay $700 for a nearly 20-year-old GameCube game, especially when it's the highest rated entry in its respective series. I'm looking at you, Thousand Year Door. So I started this video talking about Smash, and I'm going to end it talking about Smash. The way Nintendo has treated the Smash community is honestly abysmal, and it's saddening considering how poorly it is treated by the greater fighting game community at large. On top of this general mistreatment of the Smash community by outsiders, many of the top brass in the community have rightfully been held accountable for the deplorable and inhumane actions taken by them. The Smash community just cannot catch a break. So let's talk about recent events in the scene. More specifically, Big House's Melee Invitational essentially being cancelled because Nintendo has its panties in a wad. It's probably because some of the guys and gals working there have daddy issues and feel like taking it out on a grassroots portion of the community, the competitive scene. Apparently the reason why it was cancelled was due to a cease and desist issued because Sippi was being used to play the tournament. This is honestly stupid that Nintendo is taking away such a positive thing while the world is in a pandemic. Much of the reason why Sippi is being used is to keep everyone safe and socially distanced. While Nintendo is 100% in their legal right to do this, it's villainous that they would. The tournament has no backing from Nintendo, is being ran out of dedication to a game Nintendo made. The reason it's being shut down is because a mod being used, and said mod was created by a man who quit his job and dedicated all of his time just to developing this netcode so that people from all around the world could enjoy Nintendo's work, that they refuse to re-release an update with modern features. On top of this, it isn't like Melee threatens the sales of the latest Smash game out, whether it be casually or competitively. Every Smash game has thrived and continued to bring in new players every day. At this point, it's merely unreasonable for Nintendo to do this, and it's even counterproductive, or so you'd think. You see, a recently massive tweet longer was released by an account known as Anonymous Smasher that details Nintendo's prerogative to suppress the Smash community in its scene. I will say that this account is anonymous, should be taken with a grain of salt as not much of this has been sourced or corroborated yet, though some of the information here confirms many of the suspicions the community has had for years. While not directly after their failure to do so in 2013's EVO tournament, Nintendo has essentially ghosted many of the companies that have gone into talk with them to start a competitive Smash League. These companies aren't pushovers either. They're major players in the esports realm like Red Bull and Twitch. And while talks always started, Nintendo's always came back to leave them on red and would go into multiple talks to stop new companies from asking or trying to jump into the fray. But why do this? One of the main reasons is suppression. See, by getting more large companies involved, Nintendo can simultaneously stamp out mods and fan creations and keep a metaphorical hand on the community at all times. Many of the companies involved are platform holders or esport companies that can ban players for a multitude of things. Recent evidence has come out of Twitch threatening top-level players with bans from the platform should they stream the game Project M, as they were apparently in talks with Nintendo at the time about starting a Smash League and didn't want to get in trouble. Even top Melee player Hungrybox has recently come out and said Twitch highly suggested he stop streaming Project M, a mod of Super Smash Bros. Brawl, or his account might get banned. On top of this, these leagues weren't just for Melee, but extended to Brawl, Smash 4, and even Ultimate. This is kind of what I've been suspecting for a long time. Nintendo is suppressing the competitive Smash community, and because of the grassroots nature of the group, they're fine with not having the support of Nintendo despite wanting it badly. Nintendo essentially throws us a bone every once in a while to give us hope and never goes the full mile because they're like a snake that feeds once a month. Nintendo puts their approval on tournaments, but never supplies anything, while the community essentially provides free advertisement for whatever game is out at the time. It's honestly disgusting and parasitic. We as the Smash community need to push back. So what can we do as a whole? I think the first thing we need to do is be vocal about Nintendo and its anti-consumer nature, whether it be YouTube videos, tweets at Nintendo, or just not buying their products. Whether you do any of these things, it doesn't matter as long as you're supporting the cause. We need Nintendo to listen. As for anything Smash related, I believe we as a community just need to spam Nintendo with free Melee and save Smash and keep the ball trendy. Many people don't realize how much giants like Nintendo hate bad press. Overall, the voice of the people is stronger than the voice of the tyrant. Well, how did you guys like this video? Took a while to edit because it's pretty big, pretty big. But I'm glad you watched all the way to the end. If you watched it, tell me how you feel about this stuff all down in that comment section below. But this has been your man Shadicstick. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Follow your boy on Twitter at MobShadic100. Join the Discord, buy some merch, and become a channel member. It really helps your boy out. But remember, hot Faraga turns to cold Blizzaga. Make sure you check out some of my other videos. Peace, kiss, kiss.